Instagram is one of today's most popular platforms for running online ads and acquiring new customers. Instagram is part of Meta, and in 2013, the first ads were tested in the US. From 2015, it was then possible to run ads there worldwide. In the third quarter of 2023, over 2 billion active users were counted worldwide. In Germany, about 27.5 million people use Instagram, which is roughly 1/3 of the population. What's even more exciting, around 61% of users on Instagram are between 18 and 34 years old. So exactly the younger generation that is super important for many products and services. Today, I'm going to show you step by step how you can create your first campaign on Instagram. I'll guide you completely from the absolute basics to the finished ad. I promise you, if you watch this video to the end, you will understand Instagram ads much better than 90% of the people out there. And believe me, it's much easier than you think. Maybe you've seen that under an Instagram post, there's a button that says boost post. Many people click on it because it looks so easy, but I'll be honest with you, you're better off staying away from it. It's a waste of money. Why? It's simple. This boost post option offers you hardly any setting options. You can't define proper target audiences. You can't set up a clean structure. You can't do any split tests. It's just a reach boost without any real control. That's exactly why you should always go through the Meta Business Manager. There, you have all the options in your hands and can work in a truly professional way. To be able to run ads on Instagram, you first need a private Facebook account. Through that, you can then create a business account, the so-called Business Manager. In the Business Manager, you manage everything: pages, ad accounts, access rights, and much more. I know so many people who want to start right away and skip these steps, but without the Business Manager, you'll just end up with chaos in your campaigns later on. Once you're in the Business Manager, you'll eventually land in the Ads Manager. That's where the exciting part begins. The structure is always the same. You have 3 levels. At the very top is the campaign, below that are the ad sets, and at the very bottom are the individual ads, so the ad level. Each level has its own task. At the campaign level, you then select the objective. So what do you want to achieve with your advertising? Do you want to build reach to become better known? Do you want to send traffic to your website? Do you want to generate engagement like likes, comments, or shares? Do you want to collect leads for your services? For example, email addresses or phone numbers, app promotions, if you have an app, for example, or if you want people to download your app. And then there's the sales objective. For shops, this is usually the most important objective. For our example, we'll take the sales objective because that's the most relevant for most people. If you select leads, that's no problem either because the structures are very similar. Only with the other objectives would I be a little careful. Things like reach, for example, that's more for special strategies or for large corporations. That's why most also select sales or leads as their final objective because you want to generate either leads or sales for your business. Then comes the ad set level. Here you set who you want to reach, so your target audience, the age, the gender, the interests, and the location. Many people make the mistake here of narrowing down the target audience too much. I've seen campaigns that in the end only targeted 10,000 people. Way too small. Of course, there are exceptions where that can make sense. For example, if you have a local business, but if you're selling, for example, nationwide in Germany or in the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, then that's way too small. That's why my recommendation is start broader and learn from the data. You can later duplicate different ad sets, test them with slightly different interest, or test other factors. That's how you find out what really works well and what doesn't. At this level, you can also select interests such as sports, fitness, healthy eating, or other topics that fit your product or service. But you can also upload custom audiences here, so existing customer lists or newsletter subscribers, or even create lookalike audiences. So to put it another way, you can either reach completely new people who are similar to your people, for example, if you create a lookalike, or you can specifically target existing people again with ads. So if you upload a custom audience list, so to speak, it's important to mention, at the beginning, it's better to test with broad targeting or with single interest instead of making too many restrictions or combining many things. It might work for certain people, but for most media buyers I talk to, it's rather rare. Then at the ad level, there's also the option to select the placement. Here you also simply decide where your ad will be shown, so the placements. You can choose whether it's in the feed, in stories, in reels. If you're not sure exactly where your target audience is, you can also just leave it on automatic at the start and later analyze where the budget mainly goes or where the sales come from. Then we come to another important part that must not be forgotten, and that is the pixel. You can also find the setting for it at the ad set level, and here it's important that you activate it because the pixel is crucial for tracking what happens after the click. Did someone buy? Did someone fill out a form? Did someone abandon the shopping cart? And so on. Without the pixel, you're basically flying blind because you simply have no data about the success of your ad campaigns. Of course, there are many other detailed settings at this level, for example, for budget management or attribution, but you can ignore those at the start because this video is really about the basics. If you'd like to see a detailed tutorial on that, you'll find the link down in the video description. Now let's talk about the topic of budget. You can decide whether you want to set the budget at the campaign level. That's called CBO or campaign budget optimization, or at the ad set level. That's then called ABO or ad set budget optimization. So with CBO, you give Instagram a total budget and the algorithm has to decide how the money is distributed among the respective ad sets. So a campaign can have several ad sets, and with ABO you control that yourself at the ad set level, and then you say, hey, this ad set should definitely get, for example, $50. This ad set should only get $30, and so on. But my recommendation is, if you invest under $50 a day, then you should rather work with ABO because you simply have more control and not so much to distribute. With a higher budget, CBO is definitely worthwhile because Instagram can then optimally evaluate the data and control it flexibly. Now we come to the creatives, so the image or video that people see in the end. Videos often perform better because they generate more attention right away. But a strong image with a clear message can also work very, very well. Therefore, make sure that your message becomes clear in the first few seconds. Nobody waits 10 seconds to understand what it's about. You also need a short, clear text, a strong headline, and a clear call to action such as shop now or learn more. So that you can really find out which creatives work best, you should use a testing campaign. There you can try out different formats, for example, testimonial videos, comparison ads, or classic product clips. It's important that in each testing group, for example, at the ad set level or ad level, you change only one single factor if possible. That's how you recognize what really makes the difference. Was it the hook, the visual language, or the format, or other factors? Because if you, for example, combine several factors and one ad performs better, then you don't know, hey, was that because of factor number one or was that because of factor number two? That's why it's also called A/B testing, that you always change only a single factor. For the analysis, a creative analytics dashboard also helps. There, you can not only look at classic metrics like CPM, CPC, or CTR, but also deeper values like the hook rate, hold rate, or also marketing angles. With such a dashboard, you can not only see which ads bring the most clicks or maybe the most sales, but you can also compare which perspective, so that's what a marketing angle is called, or which story works best. You can recognize, for example, whether emotional stories are better received, whether a strong product comparison is convincing, or a humorous approach brings the most sales, or whether founder ads or ads with a voiceover or simply fast product demos perform best. This means you don't just have numbers and facts, but you also have, for example, the different viewpoints, different perspectives, because every person simply buys for different reasons. Some buy the product, for example, because they want to lose weight. Others buy the same product if they maybe want to build muscle, and so on. By the way, here's another tip on the side. Always sort your results by spend, so by the budget used. Only when enough budget has been spent are the numbers really meaningful. Because if one ad has spent $1,000 and the other ad has only spent $5, the ad with a spend of $5 doesn't really have any significance. In addition, I would also recommend choosing tools like a Launchpad. They simply help to structure everything better, because with it you can see which creatives are currently in the testing phase, which ads are winning ads, which ads didn't work so well, or which ads, for example, were scaled, which ads still have potential, or ads that should still be supported. This way, you keep an overview of everything, even with many variations, especially when you're testing more from the test, and can quickly decide what will be tested further or what will be scaled. With such an analysis, you avoid the mistake of accidentally scaling the wrong ads or shutting down profitable variations too early. Instead of relying on gut feeling or individual likes, you can make data-based decisions about which ones really have potential or which ones are just a flop. This way, you also build a system right away with which you can later scale large budgets in a controlled and profitable way. An extremely important point is also the topic of tracking. Factors such as ad blockers or the privacy policies of Apple from iOS 14 or now also iOS 17 simply ensure that tracking has become significantly more difficult. Even if a user agrees to cookies, it can be that the Meta Pixel doesn't fire correctly because Apple blocks targeted tracking with its app tracking transparency feature. In addition, Apple with its so-called link tracking protection and some browsers like Firefox, for example, removes certain parameters in the links such as FB-client that Instagram simply needs for identification, which means that tracking is also restricted here. This is also the reason why the numbers you later see in the Ads Manager are often more estimated or modeled. Meta talks about modeled conversions here, so modeled sales, or in other words, estimated sales, because not all events can be measured exactly by Meta anymore. This can lead to you seeing different numbers in the Ads Manager than in your shop system or in your website system. If you then optimize or scale campaigns based on these inaccurate numbers, there is simply a risk that you are in reality pushing the wrong ads or target audiences. This can cause your results to suddenly plummet, and in the worst case, you burn a lot of budget without noticing it directly. To avoid this, many marketers also use tracking and analysis tools that work independently of Meta and combine server-side data. I of course recommend our own software, Adverfly. You can also find a link in the video description. This way, the results can be accurately attributed later, for example, which campaigns or ads really triggered a lead or a purchase. This is especially helpful when you're testing different target audiences or creatives in parallel and want to evaluate the performance cleanly. When you have everything ready, so objective, target audiences, budget, placements, creative, tracking, interest, and so on, then you click on publish on the last page. Instagram then reviews the ad. This usually takes a few hours. In exceptional situations, it can also take a few minutes. For example, if you run a very large number of ads, or it can sometimes take a day. That, however, is more the exception. But after the ads have been published and the first budget has been spent, that's when the real work begins. You then look at the results, test more variations, optimize your target audience, try out new creatives, and so on. This is how you gradually find the most profitable combinations. And once you've found them, then your ads will become more and more profitable, or it will become easier and easier to scale them profitably. So, you see, Instagram ads are not rocket science once you've understood the system. The only important thing is that you don't just start blindly, but have a clear structure. Business account instead of the boost button, clean campaign structures, target audiences that make sense, good tracking with all the details, a creative analytics dashboard, and regular optimizations. If you implement all of this, you're already a huge step ahead of most people who just run something and hope that it somehow works. So that's it for this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. You can ask questions in the comments at any time. See you in the next video. Bye bye.